everybody. Randy Patterson again here with Boomerosity. Boy, I just hung up a few minutes ago from talking with Marlon Hargist of the band Exile. He's one of the, well, they're all the original members of the band for the most part, and he especially has been there. And next year, if you can believe this, next year, 2023, will mark their 60th year as a band. Can you believe that? That just doesn't even seem possible, but it's true. And of course, we know the band from their huge, huge hit, Kiss You All Over. And they've got other hits out there and have recorded all sorts of albums. And they've come out with a new Christmas single, which gave me the opportunity to talk to Marlon this time. Now, he and I have been Facebook friends, but this is the first time I've ever got to interview him. Before, I've interviewed with Sonny Lemaire, and then before that was with J.P. Pennington. All of these guys have been with the band forever, and so it was wonderful to finally be able to talk to Marlon, and we had such a great time, and I kept him on the phone forever. But it was just a fun chat. And I think you guys will find it to be fun as well. You get to watch it. You get to just sit there as if you're sitting there with us and enjoying the laughter and the comments about other bands and the music business and collecting records and all that kind of stuff. It really is a very fun interview. I hope you watch every second of it and that you share it with your friends. So without any further ado, here is the Boomerosity interview with Marlon Hargis of Exile. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerosity. Take care. Man, I'm glad we're finally getting to meet. I mean, I know you and I are connected on Facebook, and we kind of like each other's stuff and all that. I haven't run you off with any of my posts, so that's a good sign.
Obviously, I like what you're posting, or I would have left. But anyway, good to finally put a face to a Facebook thing.
Yeah, that's right. Or whatever else I may, horse's rear end or something I put on there. I don't know. But so where are you calling in from? Nashville?
I'm at home. Actually, we got home yesterday from we were out with Alabama for in North Carolina. Then of course leaving again. We'll be leaving out Thursday night, basically again.
Oh boy!
For our last weekend. Then of course we're off the rest of the year, and then most of January. But we're all ready for a little bit of a break, I think.
Oh, I can imagine. How was the tour with Alabama? I didn't get to make any of those stops. I interviewed, of course, the late Jeff Cook. It feels weird saying that now. I interviewed him several years ago and was just heartbroken to hear that he passed. How was it? How was the band doing without him, and how did it feel with you guys touring with him?
Well, as you may know, Jeff hadn't been touring with him for a while.
Right.
Maybe, a few years, really. He would come in every once in a while.
Right.
So I guess you could say the band was sort of used to it. It was real heartbreaking, and we were talking, but you could tell Teddy particularly was extremely upset. We were talking to him this weekend about it, and of course we were really good friends with Jeff and Lisa as well, because we'd done a bunch of his benefits and stuff at Fort Payne over the years. So it's just a shame for someone who really loved performing like Jeff did, to not be able to do that in recent years.
Yeah.
So it's just heartbreaking, but obviously they've decided to go on and carry on. So and with that all being said, it's great being out with them, because we've got to become great friends over the years with all the band members. We know all of them, so it's one of those. When we're touring together, everyone gets along. It's just a really smooth operation. So it's a pleasure, really.
Good deal. Well, I mean, both with that tour and just when you guys are doing your own dates, since the pandemic has let up, I think it has, and I kind of think it wasn't even as bad as maybe we thought it was in some ways. In other ways, it was worse. But what are you seeing different out on the road now, and how are the fans behaving? How are the venues for you guys? All that kind of stuff. Has there been much change since the pandemic let up?
Well, there was. Now, I will say, in the last few months, things seem to have gotten pretty much back to the way they were. Now, we literally lost a whole year's worth of work in 20. Let's see, when was the pandemic? 2020.
20, beginning of 20. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, after a whole year off, you lose track of what year it is. So we actually, by luck, had just gotten off a cruise like the week before everything shut down, and we literally lost. I think we might have done 1 or 2 dates the rest of that year. Now, luckily, most of those dates we were able to move to 2021. So last year it was a little different, and it seemed to take a little bit to get back up. I wouldn't say our numbers suffered. It's just things were just different.
You can feel it. Yeah.
I'll tell you this one thing. When we started back, the audience's reaction, it was like multiplied exponentially. And I think it's just because people were glad to be out, to be able to see a show again.
Yeah.
So I remember the first couple of shows we did back, the crowds, it was just very fulfilling because the crowds were just going nuts. And I'm thinking probably not just because of us, but just to be out at a concert, you know?
Yeah.
So that was a little different, but I think at this point things have pretty much gotten, seem like back to normal, and hopefully there won't be any other, another dip or whatever. Hopefully things will continue that way.
Yeah. I know for me, I live here in the Smoky Mountains. I live in Sevierville. And when the pandemic, when the shows started coming back again, a little over a year ago, the first big one I went to was in your neck of the woods, and went over to Nashville to the Bridgestone and saw Eric Clapton and Jimmy Vaughn. And I went there expecting, because I know how Nashville is. I spent about a year there in 2019, right up until the pandemic, in fact. And so I know it tends to be a lot more, it follows the recommended lines a lot more strictly, And so I went there. I had my, I had been vaccinated. I had my card. I had a mask.
Sure.
And I'm standing there outside the Bridgestone, and I'm looking at this mass of humanity. And I don't think I saw a single mask on out there. Of course, they weren't asking for our cards and all that. And I thought, this is weird, but it was great. Everybody had a good time. Clapton was great. Jimmy was great, all that. But it just seemed, but then I came back to some shows in Knoxville and down in Chattanooga, some other artists. And one, I had to wear in Chattanooga, I had to wear the mask. In Knoxville, in my backyard, had to show the card. And it's like, what the heck? It just all over the map.
It varies. And I don't remember, I'm sure a lot of our audience was masked for a period of time. And frankly, I tried to be very careful when I was out and about. I'm hoping it doesn't come back this winter to, having to start wearing masks again, even though I understand there's a huge flu epidemic right now. It may come down to that. And frankly, I don't mind if I keep from getting sick,
Sure.
But no, things have gotten back to normal, and it looks like our next year is going to be a really good year. So that's a good thing. I'm glad we all survived it.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you guys survived it too, man. It's always good to hear you guys and see. I know during the pandemic, we were, you guys had a live streaming event, and I got to do the VIP thing afterwards. Bev had invited me, so I got to chat with you guys and a few of the other fans that joined in on that. And that was a lot of fun. I think you guys were very innovative in putting that on. It was good for fans to see it and all that, and hear you guys, and hear the camaraderie back and forth. I thought that was a very good touch that you guys did. And
it was fun. And of course, a lot of artists were doing those kind of streaming things. And as we said, we don't normally do that sort of thing. One issue with the band is band members live in 2 different cities. Some of us live here in Nashville. Other guys live in Lexington, Kentucky.
Right.
So it's really logistically hard. It was very hard, particularly back then, with everything shut down, for us to all get together to do a live stream. I guess we could have tried doing it remotely, but that's not going to work for us old guys.
Well, you get the latency on the line, and it can really foul things up and throw everybody off. So
that is a real problem. So, but it was fun, and we might try something like that again just for the heck of it.
Well, it's a good way to do a good fan meet and greet. If you can't
Yeah,
do them in person, why not just do it online?
right.
Fans will pay a few bucks and be good to. I mean, I do this kind of stuff all the time, but for other fans, they don't get this opportunity to talk one-on-one with you, or to, for a group of fans to talk to the whole band or whatever. So I think it's a good opportunity, and it kind of opens up that revenue for you too. Cause I know for all artists, the meet and greets, the VIP packages are a part of an ever shrinking pool of money that you guys can tap into, because the labels seem to get it all. And
Yeah. Well, frankly, as far as we're concerned, as far as an artist at our age and at our level, record the large record companies are basically irrelevant to us.
yeah,
I mean, that's and you frankly, you're not going to make any money from actual record sales, like in the old days. So,
right.
uh, as with most artists, live music and merchandising and stuff, that's our main source of income.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and it frankly kind of hurt to be off a whole year, but we all survived, and we're back.
Well, you mentioned the old days. Next year, you guys are going to be in your 60th year. Does that even seem possible?
It didn't, and some of the guys and I talk, when we were back in our 20s playing, I mean, we never even thought 6 years ahead, much less go 60 years. I mean, you just don't think about it, and then a decade goes by, and then another, and it's pretty remarkable. Someone did some research recently, and we literally are one of the longest running bands in the world.
Yep.
The Beach Boys go back a little before us, and the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
That's really about it.
That's yep.
So we're in good company, and of course, another thing we're lucky is that the five of us that are touring, as you well know, are all the guys who played on all the records. So we're I think a legitimate, older group, and as opposed to a lot of bands who may have one member, or some bands don't even have any original members.
That's right.
That's neither here nor there, but
right.
we feel good about always pointing that out, that we are the guys who played on the records.
Yep. Well, you guys, this just popped in my mind, and pardon my feeble attempt at humor, but maybe you guys need to re-record your big one and call it "I Kissed You Over and Over and Over and Over and Over," 60 times.
It's pretty good.
Hey, just give me a little blurb on the liner notes, and I'll be happy, and a signed copy. So
Weird Al would do. I kiss until it's over or something.
That's a good one. I like that one better.
We've had so many variations of those through the years. Most of them we can't even talk about. So
I can imagine.
Well, we said we should do a real hardcore country version called "I Kissed Your Overalls."
That's pretty good. I like that. That would be an interesting list to see from you guys. All the list of all the spoofing, all the tweaking of that title that you guys have heard, that you come up with, all that would be maybe a rewrite or two. I think there's a crowd for that. I think you guys make a fortune off of it, actually. So
it's interesting when we put together set lists. We'll talk about songs, and we always have what you refer to them as spoof names, and we use that same term for titles. And I know I've seen song set lists from other artists. Everybody does that. Instead of writing the over the years, you'll get bored with writing the real title, so you write some weird shorthand title that the other band members know what you're talking about. But it would be interesting to see a little book of all those different lists of screwed up song titles that artists use in their set list.
I never thought of it that way, but that would be pretty cool. And I guess you guys would have to be kind of careful with that, because I know in some artists that, that's part of the thing that fans, strive for. Some guys will reach for the guitar picks, and there's those that want to get that set list and maybe signed by the band or an artist or two or something. So it's
and I don't know why that used to strike me as odd. That's something at the end of every show, people are always wanting to get, particularly the guys in front, they'll put their set list on the floor and usually tape it down. People always want to get those set lists and then get them signed if possible. As a matter of fact, we are actually talking about maybe putting together some set list to actually put with our merch, because and I think the thing is, like if we sign it, people want us to date it, or they'll date it, and it's because there's something particular. Sorry, I'm getting an ESPN alert there. There's something important about a specific date. It brings back, I guess, certain memories of being there that night.
Yeah,
and I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a funny thing. A few years ago, I went to see the group Yes. Well, heroes of mine, the whole band. And it was an outdoor venue, and I was sitting really close to the front, and the stage wasn't that high up, maybe 6 or 8 feet. I remember actually walking up and looking up on the stage at their set list to see what they were going to do. And I think, well, that's kind of a Gurmy thing to do, but it was interesting to me, you know. And I think it was Rick Wakeman's set list I looked at, and heck, if I got a chance, I would have had to ask him to sign that, So,
well, especially from one keyboardist to another, right? Yeah. So
exactly. So I get it. It's just a special moment, I guess you'd say, that you want to remember.
Yeah. Well, and everybody has their own angle on it. For me, I like getting albums signed or books. If an artist comes out with a book, I like to have the first. I have a whole collection of first edition, second edition, third edition at most. And some of the people are gone now, or one or two are, and so I'll never part with it. My heirs, whoever they are, will get to figure out what to do with it in a yard sale or something. I don't know, but
when we were younger and touring with a lot of acts, for some reason that stuff was never that important to me. In retrospect, I wish I had done that more. I wish I had gotten more autographs, more pictures. Of course, back then you didn't have cell phones to take immediate pictures.
Yeah.
But I wish now I had gotten more of it, and I wish I'd saved more of it.
Yeah.
That's just part of stuff when you get older, you think back about,
Oh, Bill Wyman from the Stones, or used to be with the Stones, he has a whole warehouse of stuff, film and set list and all that kind of stuff. And their keyboardist, Chuck Liddell, he's the keeper of the set list from all the tours. I mean, they go to him, he's the music director. So he has his binder. They come up and say, all right, what are we doing? He goes, oh, you don't want to do this one this time because we did that 15 years ago when we were here, or something like that. So it's kind of interesting.
I didn't know that. That's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's been the biggest change that you've seen as a band, as a member of the band in this business in your 60 years? What's been the best and the worst changes you've witnessed?
Well, I think the worst change, and again, just my opinion, is going away from albums and going everything digital.
Yeah.
Because and I'm sure you were like me. I just remember getting an album, looking at the artwork, reading the liner notes, putting it on and hearing the little record, the little noise. I miss those days. And even though digital makes a lot more sense to a lot of, young people, I miss those days.
Mm-hmm.
As far as some good things, the technology, and particularly as far as recording and so forth, that's really made things a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
In the old days, you might have to do a track 20 or 30, just keep doing it over and over again. You got it right, because you didn't really have any options. Now you can, technologically, if you mess something up, you can go back in digitally, change it, or drop something in real quickly. Now, I do think that's taken maybe a little of the emotion out of recording. uh, because and you were talking about the Rolling Stones. I remember always hearing that if they had various takes of a song, they may not use the one that was the most perfect musically, but if it had a vibe to it, they would use that.
Yeah.
And I think a little of the emotion has gone out of recording, but the technology is much better. The technology of touring, all that stuff has gotten much, much better. So that's a good thing. But it kind of balances off. There are good things and bad things, but as I say, I just kind of miss the old album days and the kind of the simplicity of it. But and unfortunately, a lot of kids, they have no idea what I'm talking about because they maybe never seen an album.
Yeah.
Even though they aren't making a comeback, as you well know.
Yeah.
Well,
there's big collectors of it, but then at the same time, what I'm hearing is, there's people that are, whether it's albums, whether it's, fan fest of some sort, those of us who appreciate all that stuff in our demographic, our age group, we're slowly dying off. And so the demand for that stuff is not as strong as it used to be. And like a good friend of mine, he's an avid album collector, and he goes, Randy, when I'm gone, I'm afraid my kids are just going to, put on here $1 a piece at the yard sale. And some of this stuff is, some of it's worth some money. And that's true. And Nancy Andrews that lives there in Nashville, she's a sought after Beatle Fest guest because of her association with Ringo back in the day and all that. And she's saying, Randy, I'm seeing less and less demand for some of this stuff that used to fetch, high dollars. So it's kind of a catch-22, but yet the these big companies are buying the catalogs of the music and paying huge money for it. I mean, it's blowing me away, and I'm wondering what the long-term plan of all that is, But,
good question. Frankly, we're kind of negotiating some stuff ourselves, but I don't, as you said, I don't know what the long range thing is, but it's weird. Myself, I had maybe at least 500 or 600 albums back in the day. I mean, a huge amount. And at some point, I ended up selling all of them back in the 90s. And in retrospect, I don't know why the hell I did that. And now I really wish I had them. Because when CDs came in, everyone said, "Oh, that's it. That's the new technology."
Yeah.
And of course, as you know, as far as the fidelity of them, the fidelity of albums is much, much better than CDs, or particularly streaming, because everything's sort of compressed down.
But you have that compression, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I really sound like an old curmudgeon.
Well, I'm sitting here nodding my head with you, man, because I'm right there with you. But let's face it, you open up a CD. I mean, to go back to what you were saying earlier, when a new album came out, it was an event.
It was.
First, there wasn't this deluge of music coming out. And so when when Elton John came out with Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy, I mean, I could not wait to I rushed down to the record store at the mall in Phoenix and was hoping they hadn't sold out yet. And I was lucky that they didn't, and I got home and you put it on the turntable and I'm reading everything on there and who produced, who was doing this, who was doing that. And I loved it. Now I can't read the daggum CD jacket.
That's true.
and these magnifying glasses don't help much,
I know. By the way, I was watching Elton John. He did a live stream. Was it on Disney Plus? His final concert. Was it at Dodger? I think at Dodger
Stadium. Yeah.
And not only was it great, but this is a little more technical, but he was still using floor monitors, and everyone else is using inner monitors. I thought, well, it's all old school.
Yeah.
But I kind of like that, and I thought that was a great concert.
I didn't get to see it, but I'm sure there'll be a DVD out on it. But
if you still have Disney Plus or access to it, it's still streaming. I mean, you can watch it anytime.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but he's a great artist, great piano player. And in his concerts, I actually remember seeing him back in the '80s. He plays a lot more, solo stuff than he does on the albums. A great player. So it was actually cool. But I was just thinking, he's one of the few artists that still kind of goes old school and does, floor monitors and just kind of the old school approach, which is kind of cool.
Well, speaking of Elton, one thing that slightly annoyed me a little bit was I was actually living in Nashville 2019, 2020, and I worked downtown. I was at the Service Source building down there on Church Street and 4th, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And walked down during lunch over to the Bridgestone just see what was going on. And I saw the big display there. So that was his final tour, 2019. Yeah. And this was going to be it. And the tickets on the floor were 4 figures.
Yeah.
Up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Needless to say, I didn't go. But, and then now back around, same final tour, but it's at the Nissan Stadium. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah. Well, let's see. The Eagles they've done their final tour how many times?
Or the Who. I remember the Who's first final tour in 1981, 82.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You have to take it with a grain of salt.
True. True.
I do understand that. I think Elton literally said this really is it. I saw an interview with him, and actually someone asked him, said, "Are you going to miss touring?" And he said no. He said, I've had enough. I just want to stay home and enjoy. So I get that, but I understand. It's a little strange, and we promise we won't do any more than one final tour when we get around to it.
Well, we want to have plenty of heads up on that too, so we can be sure and catch it too, because I know you're a man of your word. So, hey, this Christmas single, love it. Tell me the story behind it. How'd that all come about?
Well, during the pandemic, actually, while we were shut down, Sonny and JP and a good friend of theirs, Sharon Vaughn, who's a well-renowned writer, they actually started writing using Zoom, and because Sharon is in another. Well, actually, they were all 3 in different cities.
Wow! So
they started writing a lot of songs, and some of them Christmas songs. Why, I don't know, but this is one that they wrote. And now, to digress a little bit, this past year we were actually working on a new project for next year, a new album. But in recording that, we decided to. Well, let me back up a little more. We had released a Christmas album last year,
right? So
we decided to record a couple more songs to this year, and then next year we're going to add those songs and sort of re-release the whole project. Mm-hmm. So there were a couple of new songs that they came up with, and this is just one of those feel-good songs. It's kind of got, to me, an old R&B vibe to it.
Yeah.
And of course, Les singing it, he's got that R&B. Sorry, there's there's a next ESPN alert that came in.
You're their biggest fan, aren't you?
But it's got that R&B vibe. We even have some horns on the record, so it's just one of those fun songs. And we shot a video for it, which was fun. And it's just a fun song to play.
How long did it take you guys to put it together? Is it one of those one-day recordings, or was it a bit more involved in that?
Well, actually, we record in 2 different cities. JP and Les, and then sometimes Sonny goes there. They'll record certain parts of the studio in Lexington. Right. Then they'll digitally send that material down to a studio down here. Then usually Steve and I add drums and keyboards here. So to answer your question, the recording probably was over a period of 2 or 3 different days. So, and that's one thing that's negative about us living in different cities. The old days of all getting together and recording the track together, we don't get a chance to do that much.
Yeah.
And I think we all miss doing that, but it's just the nature of the world today, basically. Yeah. So that song was, if I recall, it went pretty quickly. Some songs you may take for example, when I'm putting my keyboard parts on, some songs you may take hours and hours working on. This one went by probably into 3 or 4 takes. I mean, it was pretty quick.
Oh, cool.
And just a fun song to do and painless. So it was enjoyable.
Cool. What's been the reception to it so far?
So far, very good. Of course, again, it just being out, 3 or 4 weeks in the video, it's a little early to tell. It's the kind of thing probably next year you'll have a better concept of what people think about it because, with Christmas songs, it takes a while for people to sort of get used to them.
Yeah.
And we, of course, are doing a Christmas tour, and we still do mainly. In our first Christmas album, it was almost all what we call cover songs. In other words, our versions of classic Christmas songs,
right, the traditional stuff. Yeah,
people still basically want to hear those because they know the songs. But we throw in maybe 3 or 4 of our own songs in the show, and people seem to like it. Yeah. So far, the reaction's been very good.
Cool. Well, what's on your radar for the next, say, 6 months to a year?
Well, as I mentioned, we've got a new, album coming out. It's, I don't know. Actually, we may end up the company may end up pressing a few vinyl copies, which I'd be real excited about.
Yeah.
But that'll be coming out probably March or April. We already have an album title. It's called A Million Miles Later. Of course, that refers back to 60 years around and well over 1 million miles of touring. And there's actually a song the guys wrote called A Million Miles Later, which is a wonderful song. So, and that will probably be one of the first couple of quote singles off of it, however that's done these days. So that's coming up. A lot of touring plans. I'm trying to think. Mainly, I know we're getting together with management and everything at the first of the year and try to plan a bunch of stuff. Hopefully, there'll be some sort of landmark things happening, but those are all still in the works. So mainly a new album project, new big tour, and a lot of other things coming up. Possibly a documentary about the band, which might be very interesting.
That would be fun. That would be fun.
That probably wouldn't happen towards the end of the year because we're still putting together material for it. But hopefully something like that might happen. I think it'd be very cool.
Yeah. Well, when the album comes out and if later the documentary, let's make sure that, I'll work with Bev on all this, but I'd definitely love to talk with you. And if the other guys want to pipe in, they can dial in from wherever. We can do that whole multi-screen Brady Bunch looking type of interview.
We'll just do it.
That's right. That's right. We can say what we want about them then, can't we?
No, actually, it would be kind of cool to have a couple of us and or 2 or 3 of us and do a kind of a split screen thing. It'd be very cool.
We could do that. That'd be fun. And it's nothing to put together. So, but hey, I know I'll be talking to you more in the years to come, but since this is the first interview I've done with you, I wanted to ask you what I ask artists from time to time, and if I've interviewed them more than once, I usually will ask every other time. And it's not meant to be a dark or macabre type of question, but just kind of get a thumb pulse of where you're thinking at on certain things. And that is, when you step off of that great tour bus of life up at the great gig in the sky, as Pink Floyd put it, how do you want to be remembered, and what do you hope your legacy is?
Well, I assume you mean as a band. I assume you're referring to that
as a band and as you.
I think personally, as corny as it sounds, I want to just be remembered as hopefully a nice guy. That's really it. I think as a band, I think we were a pretty innovative band at certain points. Particularly when we switched to the country format. To be totally blunt, I think we are maybe a little sometimes overlooked in that aspect. Because you'd be surprised how many artists, when we work with them, come up and say, you guys were a huge influence on us, or you might be, you guys are the reason we did this and that. So I'm hoping we will be remembered as a somewhat influential band, and a good band. I think we're a really good band,
Yep.
and I think that's what I would hope. And as I say, personally, just being remembered as someone who wasn't a complete jerk. So I tried to use another word, but I won't.
Came up with a few good alternative titles to kiss you all over, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically it. I guess as an artist, you just want to be remembered a few decades down the road. I mean, that's kind of why you're here. You'd hate to think that all the work you put in through the years just went to crap. So just hope we're remembered. A few years down the line.
Well, I want to touch on something you said, because to reiterate your point about being overlooked or underestimated, undervalued, even in some cases. You guys are an incredible band. I saw you, Bev put together, I think it was like almost kind of like a CD launch when you guys did the garage tape thing and in 2019. And so there was one of the restaurants over there. It wasn't Third and Lindsley, but it was somewhere near there. And it was an outdoor thing. And I was just, I stood back and kind of watched you guys. I didn't bug you guys. I just was watch you set up and all that. And it's amazing the talent that's contained within Exile. And it's the musicianship, it's the vocals, it's the songwriting, it's the whole package, and the quality of recording too. And I think a lot of people either forget or just don't pay close enough attention to realize that Exile's top shelf, man. And I'm not just saying that because you're on here with me. I feel that, I believe that, and
I appreciate that. And like it or not, anymore, we were talking about the technology of recording and so forth. You don't necessarily have to have a lot of talent to make a good record anymore. Pardon me for being very blunt, but one thing, being old school musicians like us, I mean, we worked our way up. We paid our dues for a lot of years, and we learned how to play and how to sing and how to perform live. And we always joke, we say we can deal with anything that goes wrong, because anything that can go wrong probably has in our career on stage or whatever. So that's one thing I think I appreciate about us is we generally can pull it off on stage because we recorded it and we know how to do it. So I appreciate the compliment, and I hope I'm not sounding too egotistical, but I'm just trying to be realistic. I think we can pull it off pretty well most of the time live.
Well, I think you do, and you have. Something you said reminded me of something that Sam Andrews said. He was one of the guitarists with Big Brother and the Holding Company with Janis Joplin, and he was one of my first interviews. I actually sat across from him in California one night doing the interview, and he told me something to this effect. He goes, "Look, Randy," he goes, "when we were doing it, it hadn't been invented yet." He goes, now you have schools that crank out 500 kids a year that can do Hendrix better than Hendrix, He goes, but we were making this stuff up. It hadn't been invented yet. Some of the sounds hadn't been created yet. And, and so to your point, it was kind of became part of the DNA. And that's why you guys can do what you can do. If a problem happens, you're not flustered because been there, done that, got the scars to prove it. And you cover it up and keep on moving, and I think that's the sign of the depth and the professionalism and the talent that you guys are comprised of, and so it makes it a joy to hear you.
Thank you. It's funny, we all grew up in the 60s and when the British invasion and as to comment on what he said, we were lucky to be there when stuff was invented. I can remember the first time I heard a fuzz tone guitar, or and how lucky we were to be able to be in that magical time when stuff first came about.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't duplicate that now.
Yeah.
So I personally feel really lucky to have lived through that. First time you heard a live British band, I remember hearing the Dave Clark Five when they first started touring. I was just in heaven, and stuff like that. We were just lucky to be able to live through that and be alive then.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I feel, and you've probably seen me post it on Facebook, but yeah, I'm one of those lucky ones that got to see Elvis in concert,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, wow, and there's so much. I mean, kids see it today on film, but to be there, to hear it, to feel the crowd just go bonkers when he came out on stage. I mean, it was something that's just seldom been replicated since him, and I agree with you, man. We were born at the right time. We got all the cool music, so.
It's funny. I never got to see Elvis, but a few years ago, I actually did see McCartney, and it's that same thing.
Yeah.
The sound. Well, you're watching a Beatle live, and you, as you say, you can't duplicate that on film or anything else. And that's what I've always heard about Elvis. Just the charisma. And the vibe in the air was incredible from what I hear. So that's one of my regrets. I did, and I probably wasn't as big an Elvis fan as I should have been back then. So I never made it a point to see him, but I sure wish I had. And by the way, I love the movie. I thought that was
very good.
It was absolutely blew me away.
What blew me away, two things: the costumes were precise,
bang on.
And so was Graceland. I mean, I honestly thought, because I made a point before I saw the movie to not read up on it. I didn't want to know anything about it. I wanted to go in there cold,
Right.
And I'd been in Graceland a couple of times for the tour, and I was looking very close at it, and I thought, crap, they filmed in Graceland, and they didn't. It was filmed in Australia.
Yeah.
That's East Tennessee, I think. So
I don't know about you, but I remember we were actually touring in Memphis not too many years after he died, and went to Graceland. And I remember I was kind of surprised. It's not a huge mansion at all. And back then was before they had all the tourist stuff there. So it was just kind of like you were walking in a big house, and to me, it was kind of gaudy and stuff. I mean, I was actually I have to say, kind of depressed after going there. I thought, well, this is not really that cool, but I understand the whole thing has changed now. But
yeah, I haven't been there probably about 13, 14 years. But yeah, I mean, very 70s, very 60s, 70s for one thing. So you got to kind of keep that in mind when you go in there. But you're right, the footprint is small. I mean, the grounds are big, of course, but that footprint.
It's it's funny. My daughter, who she won't mind me saying, she's almost 40, and my grandson, who is 8, they've become obsessed with Elvis now after watching the movie. So they actually both made a trip to Memphis a few weeks ago and did the whole tour. And my 8-year-old grandson, he's become a huge Elvis fan, which is great because, it's just another generation appreciating, what a great performer he was, and there'll never be another one. Let's face it.
Well, boy, isn't that true? I got to tell you my Beatles story, and then I'll let you go. A few years ago, not long after I moved here to Tennessee from Dallas, I interviewed Steve Lukather of Toto, and he's Ringo Starr's guitarist. He had just been with him a couple of years, and they were going to play over in Greenville, South Carolina. He invited me to the show. And he said, hey, we'll meet backstage and all that. So long story short, there's a group of us talking to him. Todd Rundgren comes walking in, one or two of the other guys. And finally, Luke goes, hey, you guys want to meet the boss? Meaning Ringo. Was like, well, nah, I don't. Yeah, of course we do. And so we go in there, and we're waiting. We're in some, one of the green rooms back in there. And all of a sudden the door opens, and and he walks, and I knew Ringo's photographer, Rob Shanahan, before. So I shot him a note a couple days before, said, give me pointers on how to act, because I don't want to look like an idiot, any more than I can help, and so, I knew not to approach, not to reach, don't bring anything to sign, anything like that. But he walks in and he's got his typical teacup and saucer, he's walking in, and there's a kid there. So he points to him, come over, kid, and they had their picture taken together. Yeah. Luke's just standing offside. He's got his guitar, and I thought, I'm just dying. I was like, I want to walk up and just say something really stupid, I really like your music or something, and but I was a good boy. I stayed back, and he just looks around. He looks at me and like, and who are you? And I just like froze, and I just kind of nodded, and he nodded, and he sipped some tea and walked out the door. That was my, I didn't talk to him, but breathed the same air as Ringo for just a few minutes,
Yeah, that's close enough, but that's great. Well, it's cool that you're friends with Luther. I mean, what a fabulous player, man. Talk about a great guitar player.
Oh, amazing. And funny. Oh, you never know what's going to plop out of his mouth.
Yeah, I don't know that we ever worked with him, so I don't think I've ever met him, but he just seems like a cool guy. He sure does.
He really very great, very kind, and very gracious. I'll be interviewing them for their tour coming up with Journey, and that's going to be dynamite. They're going to be here in Knoxville in February. And so I'll be going to that, but I don't know if I'll be going backstage. They may still be in a bubble back then on that one. But anyway, I can't wait to see them. Last time I saw them was at the Ryman just before the lockdown. And they put on a great show there. I was just there for the sound check, and I'd let my cousin and his wife have the tickets for the show. But anyway, it's going to be great. I can't wait to see them. But
something, I just thought of something. We actually did meet them once. I'm thinking back. We were rehearsing. There's a studios called SIR, as you maybe all know, in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. We were working on an album there, and they were actually in another studio. And we had a mutual friend, and we actually did go over and talk to them. And as I recall, they were all very, very nice, very great people. Yeah, I don't remember anything specifically about Luke, but I just remember they were really good guys.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, they talk about paying their dues. I mean, they've been around, played on everything for everybody. They're another band that just, they know what they're doing, for sure.
I don't know if you know this, but David Pace just come out with an EP earlier this year. And
I didn't.
Yeah, and I interviewed him for that, and he just down to earth and gracious. I mean, he's sitting in his kitchen, much like you're sitting in your room there, and his wife comes by, and of course, I had his album cover behind me, like I have on yours here, and he goes, "Hey, honey, come here and look at that." I mean, it's on the video. And she's like, "Oh, that's nice," just very informal, very cool, And but they are, each one of those guys are great. I've talked to Joseph Williams recently. All of them. I mean, they cannot be more gracious guys than those guys are. And I know they get a bum rap. They get a lot of bad press from time to time just because somebody's rubbed the wrong way. But I have nothing but great things to say about all of them. They're wonderful men, and they're top shelf in my book.
Oh, it's made some of the best records ever.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But well, cool. Well, I hope you enjoy when you get to see them, and hopefully you'll get to hang out with them again. That'd be very cool.
That'd be fun. Yeah. Well, man, I hope I get to see you guys when you hit the road. And when I see that you're going to be within, striking distance of me, I'll reach out to Bev, and maybe I can get backstage and bump elbows with you guys for a couple of minutes.
I think that could be easily done. So I don't know. You said you're in the Sevierville area, right?
Yeah.
I don't. Actually, oddly enough, I've had 2 or 3 people from the Knoxville area ask me lately if we have anything booked there. I don't think we do yet, but I'd be willing to bet we will. Because I know we were actually in Knoxville with Alabama earlier this year.
Yeah, and I missed that one. I can't remember why, but I didn't even ask Bev for, see if she could help me out on tickets on that. But I for some reason, I couldn't make it. And I was very disappointed because I wanted to see all of it.
It was a really good show, and I believe there was a huge crowd there. I remember that being a really good show. But at any rate, keep in touch through Bev, and obviously, if we're in the area, it's a no-brainer. We'll work out whatever you need for backstage and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, and if you see me out of line on Facebook, man, just thump me on with a PM and say, "Dude,
Yeah.
crossing the line there."
I'll send you a messenger and say, look, what the hell are you talking about?
You may be saying that a lot with me. So.
Hey, like I say, obviously we must get along on Facebook, or we still wouldn't be following each other.
That's
So.
right. That's right. I try to behave myself somewhat. I guess it depends on how you define behave. So,
Yeah,
well, Marlon, this was a lot of fun. My door is always open to you and the band. Next time when that album comes out and when the documentary comes out, let's definitely get together and talk. Okay.
Absolutely. Sounds good, buddy. Hopefully
all right, my friend. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Now see if I can figure out how to turn this damn thing off.
I'll do so on my end. That might help a little bit. So.
All right. See you, buddy. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.